Let's get some business news for you now. Kate Moody's with us in the studio. Hello there, Kate.
Hi, Laura.
We're going to start with the whistleblower at the centre of the Facebook data scandal. He's been speaking to British lawmakers today.
Absolutely. This is Christopher Wiley. He's a former employee of Cambridge Analytica and the man who revealed the scandal to the media. He alleged that the data had an impact on both the Brexit referendum and Donald Trump's election. Meanwhile, Mark Zuckerberg is the man that everyone wants to speak to. The Facebook CEO has declined to appear before the British Parliament, but US media reporting that he has decided to testify to a US Senate panel in the future. The European Union, meanwhile, has given him 2 weeks to answer its questions about how the social network is working to prevent a similar scandal in the future. Anka Ula reports.
Facing pressure from multiple fronts, Facebook CEO Mark Zuckerberg must find a way to fix the company's biggest crisis yet, and fast. On Tuesday, British lawmakers said it was astonishing that Zuckerberg had refused the request to appear before a parliamentary committee investigating the Cambridge Analytica data leak scandal.
We believe, given the serious nature of the allegations that have been made around the access and use of Facebook user data, that it is appropriate that Mark Zuckerberg should give evidence to the committee.
Zuckerberg had offered to send one of his deputies instead, an offer the committee urged him to rethink. Meanwhile, the potential impact of the data breach is expanding. On top of Donald Trump's election campaign in the United States, the whistleblower at the heart of the scandal told British lawmakers Facebook user data was also likely used by the official campaign backing Britain's exit from the EU.
You've got Aggregate IQ, which received 40% of Vote Leave's funding. I would strongly recommend to the committee is that they actually, not only push the authorities here, but really give them, the support that they need in order to actually investigate this company and what they were doing in Brexit.
Christopher Wiley says the British company Cambridge Analytica and the Canadian company Aggregate IQ used Facebook's user data to influence elections. Both companies have denied this. Facebook insists it wasn't aware the data taken from its site were being used by Cambridge Analytica and has apologized to users for the breach. The company is under investigation by US and EU regulators who are looking into its privacy practices.
Let's check in on the day's trading action now. After its best session in 3 years, Wall Street has lost ground very sharply in the last hour or so. The Dow Jones shedding 250 points. The Nasdaq dropping behind, plunging nearly 2 1/3% this hour. The S&P down as well. Facebook shares are trading down nearly 5%. They've lost over $60 billion in value in less than 2 weeks. The major European indices, meanwhile, had a strong close. The FTSE 100 and DAX each up more than 1.5%. The British drug maker GlaxoSmithKline was among the big gainers. Its shares rose nearly 5% as it bought Swiss partner Novartis out of their joint venture for $13 billion. The European Union has 4 weeks until its temporary exemption from U.S. tariffs on steel and aluminum imports expires. The Trump administration has asked a number of allies to give it better trading terms in order to win permanent exemptions. On Monday, South Korea became the first to do so. But EU member states are reportedly at odds over how far they're willing to go. Bloomberg reports that Germany is willing to make more concessions, like lowering tariffs on American cars and food, while France wants to focus on negotiating with China, whose production of steel is at the heart of the international dispute. Both Angela Merkel and Emmanuel Macron spoke to Donald Trump this Tuesday about issues including tariffs. Now, while trade tensions remain high between many of the world's largest economies, businesses have been welcoming Africa's economies' efforts to strengthen their ties. Last week, 44 governments signed on to a free trade zone to boost intra-African trade, which last year amounted to only 15% of the continent's total activity. The participants aim to cut trade tariffs on 90% of goods from their current average of 6.1%, as well as tackling other areas, including infrastructure and border checks. Now, at the largest annual gathering of the African private sector, which is currently taking place in the Ivory Coast, businesses said they saw it as an encouraging sign to increase investment in the African market.
The potential is enormous. We have seen what happened in Europe with free trade between all those 28 countries in Europe. The same can happen here, where goods can travel from Angola to Mozambique, Angola to Zambia, completely free of tariffs. That's how you increase trade. If you increase trade, you increase the GDP of the countries, you increase the jobs in the country, more opportunities for people to open factories, more opportunities for people to want to invest in Africa.
That was Miguel Santos speaking to our business editor, Miriam Mascarello of our French channel at the Africa CEO Forum in Abidjan. Moving on to some of the day's other business headlines now. Deutsche Bank has begun looking for possible successors to its CEO, John Cryan, amid growing tension with the chairman of the board. Cryan has been in charge since 2015, and his contract extends until 2020. He's overseen years of cost-cutting, but has faced criticism over the lender's lackluster performance. Here in France, the Monoprix supermarket chain has signed a delivery deal with Amazon. It means that shoppers in the Paris region will be able to order groceries from Amazon and have them delivered within 2 hours via its Prime service. Amazon has a similar deal with Whole Foods in the United States. Meanwhile, the online retailer is also negotiating a deal for part of the French retailer's appliance and electronics chain in Brazil. And Arizona has suspended Uber's license to test self-driving cars on the state's roads. It follows the crash nearly 2 weeks ago in which a pedestrian was killed by one of the ride-hailing firm's vehicles. In a letter to Uber's CEO, the governor of Arizona said the incident demonstrated an unquestionable failure to comply with safety standards. Chipmaker NVIDIA Corp has also said on Tuesday that it will be suspending its self-driving tests across the globe. Of course, that fatal accident a couple weeks ago raising a lot of questions about the validity and safety of autonomous technology in general, not just for Uber.
Well, absolutely. Still a long way to go, I think, before cars will be driving themselves around. All right, Kate, thank you very much indeed. Kate Moody there with the business.